Have you ever get hit by a thought so sharp, so sudden, you stop breathing for a second? It doesn't shout, it whispers, "You're not good enough. They probably don't like you. This will never work." And before you even realize, you're not thinking anymore, you're spiraling. That's how fast it happens. You were fine 10 seconds ago. Now you're doubting everything. Why? Because most people think thoughts are truths, but the Stoics knew better. A thought is not a fact. A feeling is not a command. A spiral is not a story you have to finish. Marcus Aurelius didn't become unshakable by avoiding negative thoughts. He became unshakable by confronting them in real time. Here's what he wrote in the middle of battle, in the middle of noise, in the middle of personal chaos. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's not just a quote. That's a shield, because your mind? It's going to throw all kinds of things at you. Old doubts, triggered fears, echoes from childhood, heartbreak, and embarrassment. But what Marcus teaches is this. The first thought isn't the problem. The problem is what you do next. Your mind is not a peaceful garden. It's a battlefield. And if you don't walk into that battle trained, armored, and alert, you will be ambushed by your own thoughts. Marcus Aurelius trained his mind like a soldier sharpens a blade. He didn't wait for the attack. He prepared for it every single day. Here's the key. You'll always have negative thoughts. You can't control when they show up, but you can control how long they stay and whether they start running the show. Most people don't do that. They feel doubt and follow it. They feel shame and obey it. They feel fear and build their identity around it. That's what breaks them, not the thought, but the surrender. But the Stoics refuse to surrender. They treat every negative thought as a test of attention. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. That's not optimism. That's tactical clarity. It means when a negative thought shows up, your job is not to think positive. Your job is to pause and interrogate it. Where is this thought coming from? Is it true? Is it useful? Does this belong in the mind of someone I'm trying to become? If not, you drop it immediately. That's the power of Stoic reframing. You don't stop thoughts, you override them. You rewire them with intention, and over time, your mind becomes a place that resists drama, not invites it. Here's your challenge for the next 24 hours. Track your first negative thought and your second, because it's the second one that shows your training. And if you catch it, challenge it, and replace it, you win. Thoughts are visitors. They knock, they whisper, they test the locks. And most people, they don't even check who's at the door. They just open it. They let it in. They let it rearrange the furniture. They let it sleep in the guest room. That's how negativity wins. Not through force, but through permission. You're not broken because you feel negative sometimes. You're human. But you will stay broken if you nurture what should have been dismissed. You think the spiral just happens? It doesn't. It's built, thought by thought, over days, weeks, years. And that's the moment the Stoics trained for. The second after the thought enters, you get to decide what happens next, Marcus wrote. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. In other words, whatever you let linger will shape your state. It will become your mood. Your mood becomes your mindset. Your mindset becomes your behavior. And that behavior becomes your identity. All because of one unchallenged thought. Now, let's switch the metaphor. Your mind is a garden. Every thought is a seed. If you leave the gate open, anything can land, a weed, a vine, a root that chokes everything else. And if you never question it, it grows, wraps around your goals, suffocates your motivation, pollutes your perception of yourself, until one day, you're not sure what's real anymore. You just feel heavy all the time, and you think that heaviness is you, but it's not. It's just the mental clutter you never cleared out. Most people manage their digital space better than their minds. They'll delete files, clear tabs, block spam, but their mental desktop is chaos. Thousands of open thoughts, unfinished arguments, loops from the past. Maybe I'm not enough. What if I mess it up again? And all of that becomes your emotional atmosphere. Not because those thoughts are true, but because they're familiar. You've let them hang around too long. So, how do you take your mind back? Not by force, not by pretending everything is fine, but by mastering one small move. The reframe. It's a mental muscle, and like any muscle, if you don't train it, it stays weak. Here's how you build it. 1. Catch the negative thought before it snowballs. 2. Name it. This is doubt. This is fear. 3. Challenge it. Is it true? Where did this come from? 4. Replace it, not with fake positivity, but with a useful lens. Like this. I failed becomes, now I know where I'm weak. I'm behind becomes, this is a chance to build discipline under pressure. This is too much becomes, this is what training feels like. It's not delusion, it's direction. This is what most people never do. They feel the thought, they follow the thought, they become the thought. But you pause, you reframe, you reclaim the direction of your day and, over time, your identity. Because the mind will always drift, the discipline is in catching the drift early, before it pulls you back to the version of yourself you're trying to outgrow. Most people don't lose the battle in the moment. They lose it long before it even begins, not because they're weak, but because they never trained for the hit. They wait until their thoughts are screaming to try and get still. They wait until their confidence is shattered to try and feel enough. They wait until they're drowning to try and breathe. But by then, it's already too late. You don't build resilience during the chaos. You build it before. That's how the Stoics lived. They didn't journal to be poetic. They did it to sharpen their perception before fear could distort it. They didn't meditate to feel zen. They did it to anchor their identity before the world could define it for them. They trained when it was quiet, so they wouldn't collapse when it got loud. Most people treat their mindset like a fire extinguisher, break glass when the panic starts, and hope it works. But your mind isn't something you should only pick up when things go wrong. Your mind is the first layer of armor, and armor is useless if you only wear it after the arrows start flying. This is the shift. Don't wait to feel broken before you start building strength. Every small moment of quiet is an opportunity to sit, to reflect, to redirect the narrative before it takes over. You warm up your body before lifting. You warm up your voice before speaking, but your mind? Most people just throw it into the day raw and wonder why it breaks down by noon. If your mental conditioning starts after the crisis, you have already lost. Here's what training actually looks like. 1. 5 minutes of silence before the world wakes up. 2. A question, what might go wrong today and how will I respond? 3. A reminder, nothing outside me can make me act against my nature. 4. Movement, not physical, but mental. You don't journal because it's productive. You journal to catch the negative narrative before it has a chance to spiral. You don't reflect to be wise. You reflect so that when the emotion hits, your mind already knows the truth. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to be quoted. He wrote to remind himself, this is who I want to be even when the pressure hits. He prepared for insult. He prepared for failure. He prepared for the randomness of the day, not by predicting it, but by conditioning his response in advance. So here's your challenge. Before the day starts, ask yourself, if the worst happens today, who do I want to be? Then rehearse it, because when the moment comes, it won't be your intention that saves you. It'll be your training. You know that feeling when one small thought suddenly becomes everything. It starts with a missed message, then the doubt creeps in. Then you remember that thing you said last week. Then suddenly, you're replaying every mistake you've ever made. Welcome to the spiral. The wild part? Nothing even happened. No insult, no disaster, no confrontation. Just a loose thread that your brain started pulling until the whole thing unraveled. And now you're sitting there, overwhelmed and anxious, trying to solve a problem that never even fully existed. That's the danger of unchecked thought loops. They don't need evidence. They don't need logic. They just need your attention. And once you lock in, you're gone, not physically, but mentally. You're in a storm, and most people, they fight the storm from inside it. They try to think their way out of overthinking, which is like trying to put out a fire by throwing matches at it. The Stoics had a better method. They didn't argue with the spiral, they detached from it. They didn't ask, how do I stop thinking this? They asked, what part of me is being dragged by this thought and why? Here's the truth most people never hear. You are allowed to witness a thought without reacting to it. It can pass through your mind, and you don't have to grip it. You don't have to fight it. You don't have to make it mean anything about who you are, but that's not what we've been trained to do. We've been trained to interpret, to judge, to fix. So the moment a thought appears, we say, why am I thinking this? What does this mean? How do I stop it? But the Stoic doesn't get tangled in that. He steps beside the thought. He watches it the way you'd watch traffic from a sidewalk. There it goes. It's not mine. It doesn't deserve a home inside me. That's detachment. It's not denial. It's discernment. You still feel it. You still see it. But you don't invite it in. You don't pour it a drink. You don't decorate a room in your head for it to sleep in. You just watch and let it pass. This is a mental skill, and it takes practice. Start with one thought today. Catch it. Pause. Say out loud or in your head, "This is not me. This is just a pattern trying to repeat itself. I can notice it without becoming it." Because the moment you do that, you're not spiraling anymore. You're observing, and observers don't drown in storms. They study them. They learn. Then they keep walking. You ever wonder why some people just don't break? The world shakes, schedules explode, the pressure spikes, and they still move like nothing is on fire. That's not luck. That's not genetics. That's stillness. And it's not something you're born with. It's something you build. Most people think calm is a vibe, something soft, passive, a personality type. But the Stoics saw it differently. They trained calm like a weapon. They used silence the way a warrior uses his shield, not to run from the fight, but to walk into it without chaos. Because real stillness isn't the absence of noise. It's the ability to remain unchanged while the noise grows louder. You don't find stillness. You forge it in the middle of the rush, when things don't go to plan, when your brain wants to react, but you choose not to. That moment, when you want to lash out, spiral, escape, panic, and you don't, that's discipline. That's internal leadership. That's power. Calm is not for decoration. It's not about seeming unbothered on the outside. Stillness is a weapon, and like any weapon, it's sharpest when trained under pressure. Because, let's be real, anyone can be calm when things are going well. But what about when the email hits wrong, the plan falls apart, the old fear starts to whisper? That's when most people panic. They lash out, they spiral, they run to movement, any movement, just to feel like they're in control again. But stillness does the opposite. It stays put. It chooses to be quiet. It holds the line, even when the storm begs for a reaction. The Stoics didn't find stillness by accident. They practiced it. They rehearsed it every day, before the conflict, before the drama, before the insult, because they understood. If I can remain clear when others lose their clarity, I win without force. Here's a practical way to train it. Every time something triggers you, pause for 3 seconds, 3 seconds of breath, 3 seconds of nothing. It sounds small, but in those 3 seconds, you regain everything: your clarity, your voice, your identity. Because most damage happens in those first few seconds after the trigger. Master those, and you don't need to dominate anyone else. You've already dominated yourself, and that's the Stoic edge. There's something dangerous about being functional. You go to work, you reply to messages, you keep it together. No one knows. You're on autopilot. No one sees that you've become a version of yourself you never actually chose. You didn't design it. You defaulted into it. And now? It's familiar, it's easy, it's comfortable, even if it's killing your momentum. That's how identity works. Not in one dramatic moment, but in tiny, silent choices, skipping the uncomfortable thing, delaying what matters, believing the same self-doubt long enough that it starts to feel like truth. And eventually, you don't even question it. You just say, "This is how I am. This is just what I do. I've always been this way." That's the trap. The moment you confuse repetition with reality, you stop growing. Every time you say, "I'm just not a focused person. I've always been bad at consistency. I overthink." That's just who I am. You're not telling the truth. You're repeating a pattern. And the more you say it, the more your brain believes it. Not because it's accurate, but because it's familiar. Here's what the Stoics knew. Identity is not fixed. Character is not finished. You can interrupt the loop at any moment and begin again. Not once, but daily. Marcus Aurelius didn't write about being a good man once and walk away. He reminded himself constantly, "Today I begin. Today I act. Today I return to who I want to be." Because your default is not who you are. It's just who you've rehearsed. Want to break the pattern? Then stop negotiating with the past. You're not here to defend your old story. You're here to write a better one. And that starts with this question: what version of me do I keep choosing, even when I know it's costing me? Find the answer, then do something new. Not perfect, not dramatic, just new. That's how you change your life, one disrupted loop at a time. Here's a mental trap nobody warns you about. You react to everything, and by the end of the day, you're exhausted. But you didn't actually move forward. Why? Because you let everything through the gates, every notification, every passive comment, every imagined slight, every mental itch that says respond now. But the Stoic doesn't move like that. The Stoic stands guard. He doesn't let every impulse become an action. He doesn't let every opinion become a war. He doesn't let every wave of emotion become a storm. He asks, does this deserve my response? Or just my awareness? That's the difference between drained people and disciplined people. Drained people spend their energy defending, explaining, and proving. Disciplined people conserve their energy, not out of fear, but out of clarity. They've already decided who they are. They've already picked their battles. They don't flinch at every trigger, because most triggers aren't worth the shot. Your attention is currency, your energy is a budget, and every time you react to something unworthy of you, you go into debt. That snarky comment, that passive-aggressive post, that thing someone said 3 weeks ago. You could spend your day crafting a response in your head. You could mentally argue, rehearse your clapback, and spiral into stress. Or you could just say, this is not worth my peace. This doesn't move my mission. This doesn't deserve a response. And then, let it die quietly. That's power, not the loud kind. The kind that doesn't flinch. The kind that can sit in silence and still feel like a mountain. Because not reacting is not weakness, it's restraint. And restraint is rare, but it's how you stay strong for what actually matters. So here's a simple Stoic filter for your day. Is this in my control? Does this align with my values? Will this matter in 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 years? If the answer is no, release it. And if the answer is yes, respond with intention, not impulse. Either way, you're in control, and that's where peace lives. Most people don't realize it, but their entire life is running on a script they never wrote, a loop of thoughts someone else gave them, doubts passed down like inheritance, limits adopted from environments they outgrew years ago. And still, they obey it, they feel a thought, they react, they identify with it, and they repeat the pattern again tomorrow. But what if you paused right now and asked, is this thought creating a future I actually want to live in? Because that's what it comes down to. Every thought you nurture is building something. Either it's reinforcing a prison or laying bricks toward your potential. You can't always control what enters your mind, but you can absolutely decide what stays, and what stays shapes you. The Stoics knew this. They didn't try to stop all negative thoughts. They just refused to build futures with them. They questioned them, redirected them, replaced them with better ones, more aligned with who they were becoming. Every life-changing moment starts with a single decision. I don't think that way anymore. It's not loud. No one claps for it. It doesn't trend. But it alters the trajectory of everything. Because when you change your thinking, your actions follow. And when your actions shift, your identity isn't far behind. That's the real power. Not just being aware of your thoughts, but becoming the kind of person who curates them. So here's your vow. Not to be perfect, not to control every thought, but to choose your mental environment like your future lives there. Because it does. One thought can spiral you. Another can save you. Choose wisely. Choose what's useful. Choose what builds you. Choose what keeps you anchored when everything else pulls. And if today you fail, choose again tomorrow. That's the discipline. That's the difference. That's the whole game. This isn't just a video to consume. It's a mirror, and the person you're becoming is watching closely. So give them something to be proud of. Closing recap. 1. Thoughts are not facts. They're invitations. 2. You don't have to obey the spiral. 3. Stillness is strength. 4. Energy is limited. 5. Identity is not fixed. It's a pattern you can rewrite. 6. You choose your mental architecture, and your future responds to that choice. If this resonated, don't scroll past it. Sit with it, reflect, and if you need to, come back tomorrow. Now go build something strong, and don't forget to drop a comment, like, and subscribe.